This is Dario Betti. Today, your host for our traditional Thursday discussions here at MEF. This is our webinar hour. As you might have noticed, every now and then we now have briefings as well, which is more of a one-to-one discussion and well, one-to-many. I assume some of you already I can see online. So do keep these interactive. I hope you don't want to listen to my voice only, but at least to your comments, your messages, and so on. So a bit of a different format, but welcome again to the P2A business messaging survey briefing. This was a survey. We will tell you a bit more information and on the very hot topic of P2A, the person to applications. I am Dario Betti. I am the MEF CEO, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome you all, and also to give you a bit of a reminder of all the things we've been doing together. This is not just a briefing, just an online event. There is a report which you can download. If you are one of the members of MEF, you can download the full set of stats and the full set of slides and information, the analysis. There is, however, an executive summary for everybody to download. So do join and download it if you haven't done so. In terms of MEF itself, if you're new and you haven't heard about us, we are a not-for-profit global trade body. We obviously deal about the mobile ecosystem, so anything mobile, but in its variety of things, the broadening mobile ecosystem, all the different services and businesses that are emerging thanks to mobile. Our community relies for us to share an insight, just like this survey, what we've done for the group. Interactions, events, network, visibility, and impact. We do some special initiatives on advocacy and anti-fraud, etc. So if you want to know more about MEF, please do visit our website or do send us an email at info@mobileecosystemforum.com. We would love to have you as our new member. But today, coming to P2A, I just mentioned in briefing P2A and the P2A user research. First, what's P2A? We'll go into a bit more of context soon, but the opportunity to send messages for a user to an application and start a conversation, just like it being a human, but most probably through a machine that can take a large volume of inquiries at the same time. So trying to make sure things are efficient, trying to find a new channel is actually a new way of doing business and relate to a business. So some people, and MEF itself, call these conversational commerce. And conversational commerce, or you heard me before, P2A, person to application messaging, is overall well accepted, you could say, according to our users. If you look, we'll go into the details later on, but if you just look at the highlights, if you're very, short for time, listen to the next 30 seconds and then see. First, the good news is consumers are really ready for these bots. Another way to talk about person to application, P2A, is referred sometimes as a chatbots, robots for chattings. Now, 55% of smartphone users are ready to converse with these robots. So we'll see even more of it. The news is even more positive than that. So we're starting on a very good, open-minded for a lot of people that are really enjoying messaging and messaging to businesses already. However, there are some lessons in there, and one of them is that technology is hard, or at least not just the technology for all of the application providers, network providers, communication service providers out there that are trying their best to put it all together and make a shiny new experience. Technology is hard for the user in these user surveys. Whenever we talk about technology, we kind of see them almost asking questions, say, what are we talking about? But if you refer to the use cases, to the value of P2A, a lot of them get excited and they want to say, yes, this is something I'd like to do. We will see that when we talk about use cases specifically. Some countries and some markets are definitely more advanced than others, and China is one of them, and we probably will refer to this kind of two-step approach. In China, when WeChat and QQ, the Tencent applications available have already enjoyed the equivalent of P2A or application person to application services for quite a while. So we probably could learn a bit from the users, these educated users out there, and what they think about the service. But it's one thing is for sure is this is an early check of the status of the entire market, the way that users will build a new, and the market itself will build new archetypes, new standards for user experience, where probably all of those are still hard to be seen now. But we are asking users some questions as how do they think at least stuff should start today, how they're going to find these new chats, how can they start a conversation with somebody. And one of the key questions in there, the real big questions in the end is, call centers, voice-based communication, IVR type, and more talking to humans, versus these new messaging type of applications. How do they refer to? Are they ready to embrace, the messaging rather than voice? Even there, the word, it seems to be quite broad, and the approach, they don't reject necessarily P2A. 1% still says that they would prefer the trusted calling services, but 28%, pretty much almost the same, are saying that they don't mind mixing voice and messaging if necessary. And there's a 21% that say that P2A is really the messaging chat channel. So I think there's a lot of good news. And so if you are ready to go a bit deeper into these, we have a lot of information, a lot more of information. I think the question to you is, ask any question you might want now. The beauty of this format is that it's all for you. The data is available to download for you to digest at any time, but maybe these your comments will be missed unless you tell us all about it now. A bit more of context of P2A. Each time I start talking about it, I realize that we, as an industry, like this short abbreviation a lot, but there is a wealth of information around it that probably, and maybe I should excuse all the people that are really professionals and they're not all about this, but every now and then it's very useful to go back to the 101 and put the A2P, P2A, and P2P into context. So when it all started, or at least when it started to be consumers, SMS became a text messaging at the beginning of 2000s, late 90s. And there, P2P, person-to-person texting, became the big thing. And it stuck, the P2P terms. Only shortly after, applications were sending information, some of them were entertainment services, to a large amount of people. And A2P, application to person, they also became a way for business to build real communication channels to involve, educate, inform, and interact with their users. The next big chapter happened with the inclusion, not just of text, but of the multimedia. So those are the OTT apps, over the top applications, WhatsApp or WeChat or Line or Facebook Messenger to understanding, or RCS now and in future with the new standards for SMS, which will include multimedia. The next phase, what we're talking about now, you could say it's really conversational message and the P2A, the people-initiated chat. Oh, by the way, things are not stopping. We imagine, what else? Social messaging next, we will discuss it in future. But for now, here it is. I hope I've covered a few of it. A2, P2, and P, and all the different opportunities. Who knows what else might be coming? But for the time, I think we've covered the terminology. And terminology is probably a good start. But next, let's talk about some numbers. And here, really, I'd like to have your feedback, because these are math numbers, and they're based on trusted sources such as a World Bank data, and but also our calculations based on our multi-year-on-year surveys and some of the data provided for some of our members themselves. But that's what you have here is what I hope you could help us to inform and better define. We presented this before. I'll go very quickly. There are 7 billion people in the world, but 5.7 are adults that can actually be economic agents and buy things. Mobile users in the world are 4.6 billion, so there's 1 billion that doesn't have a mobile and probably might not have it in the short term. The SMS users, a lot of people can receive SMS users. The majority of mobile users can receive it. The question is, in a given month, are they active users? And by active is they actively read or they send a message. Some people do not read, well, a few of them, but some of them do not read SMS messages, or many do not get sent any message. But finally, and we're talking about users again, we're not talking about SIM cards, because there are a lot of SIM cards out there, and some people have got 2 SIM cards, and sometimes your machine, your fridge might have a SIM card, nothing to do about sending messages to those. The final question is, how many of those received messages that are paid, that are sent by businesses? And we calculated 2.1 billion, 2.2 billion there. It's a big number, definitely. So it's a number that's got a great potential, and that's January. So it's only given month over the year that number grows. But these monthly active users or receivers of messages, they are already a very large mass market global phenomenon. Use the adjective that you want, but this is a big market, and really it's already an established market with potential. As you can see there, take your numbers, you can easily double and still have many more mobile users. Questions such as having rights to contact some users, GDPR, etc., making sure that it becomes an accepted usage paradigms for some. All of that is true, but the potential for growth A2P is very big. But today we're not talking about A2P, we're talking about P2A. So here we go, a first number where we calculated, and there is a bit of triangulation and a lot of referring back to some companies on what they think. But mobile P2A, so how many users are engaging not on receiving messages in this case, but on participating in conversation, at January 2020, according to us, is 321 million. How do you judge 321 million? We think it's pretty large. I mean, there's been P2A for a long time. There have been P2A services, if you want, a rudimentary one, based on text messages. But obviously, China and the services in there do account for a large amount of these users. It could and it should grow, as we've seen many more services being rolled out on a regular basis everywhere. And these are services on the mobile rather than on the PC or on the web, where web chat already exists as well. So if you have messages, if you have comments, please do send us in the chat and let us know what you think about these numbers. If you don't and you believe MEF, well done, you trusted the right partners. We're independent, and some of these numbers I think have been double and triple checked, as we want to make sure it's a fair assumption on what's happening in the world. But more than our assumptions, it's more important, let's talk about next on what people really respond to our questions. So those are pretty sure. And Michael asked, are they all in millions? I will try to look at, yes, the answer is, sorry if the abbreviation did not show up, but let me go back so we can all review back what we have here. Yes, it's all in millions. So it starts with 5 billion, 5.7 or 5,748 million, the world population, and 321 million is a P2A engaged users we're referring to. There are millions, they're users, no SIM cards, and they're monthly users. If that's, I hope, covers some of the numbers. And I think we have a few more questions. So yes, and I think Michael probably rightly said that's a lot of users already. I was quite surprised by seeing that amount of 321 million, but I think the surprise might be coming next, because there's a good potential of growth, and over the year we will double and triple check if that numbers is a fair assumption, if somebody was trying to impress with the numbers itself. But through our research, that seems to be probably stacking up right now. In terms of the study itself, if you are new to the type of study we do, our partner on device research surveyed 6,500 smartphone users, 650 in each of 10 markets, which you'll see there, to give a good view across some of the new economies or the developing economies, some of the established and mature economies, and geographically as well, we're quite spread out. So I think with no much further ado, let's talk about what people have said and have responded. First question, would you accept a machine to respond to your messages? And there we got four possible answers. Yes, but only for routine services, such as balancing, check, order status, simple information seeking. And that's 31% of people have said, yes, I would actually use it for routine services. I would ask a machine a quick question. The 24% that replied yes, they replied yes for all questions, including more complex one that would require multiple interaction. Let's say if it's a complaint or asking for instruction how to do something. Now, add them together, the 31% and the 24%, you get to 55%, which is the majority of smartphone users. True, we only ask smartphone users, we didn't ask all users, but those are the ones that are more likely to be the first users. And because these are data services, they would need to have a data connection. So a positive start, and the no, which is the orange side there, is only 24%. Still 21%, probably not sure, not fully understanding what we're talking about. I'm trying to have a look at the questions. So yes, I think if you have questions added, and every now and then I will check. But for the time being, I think if you can put your own analysis in there, I would say that this is a pretty positive. Having such a, I think early, take the 300 million aside, but I think it's still early for many countries, status, that's a very good news and encouraging news, and possibly replicating, responding to how well understood and liked is messaging in general, more than P2A. We have another questions, and it says, why would the term machine be used? Could this create a bias? And it's a fair comment. Actually, we did have discussions about that, and we did underscore the terms machine. You will see next, actually, thanks for the question, that there are two ways we're asking the same questions. And one is talking about the technology and the machine. The other one is talking about the use cases. And so we had to introduce the term P2A and what in general it means through other words to make sure it was understandable to the users in general. And that was probably one of the difficult questions to balance. We did these also by asking the same question in this way, so thanks for the lead, which was, which one of these would be your preferred use case? Here, rather than talking about the, if you want, the mechanic of talking to an automated service, here we're asking is, which use case would you like out of this? As you can see, booking an appointment is, well, across the different segments, it seems pretty successful, 29%. And that would probably fit in what we've seen before, which is the simple routine questions, booking a question. And also it fits with the, an asynchronous information seeking. You're asking some information, you have to check whether you're free, etc. So it fits very well with the timing of messaging. Now, my surprise was to see complain about something and ask for help as the second and third results. 27% for asking for help. 26% of users would want to use this scenario, this use case. And these are more complex. So you can read it into your different ways. Maybe users are still not very understanding what they might, or they like the idea of doing something, but the reality and complexity of doing it might mean that it's not as simple. The rest seems nicely to be within those routine services, and lots of them, updating information, buying a product or services, slightly more complex, making changes to an existing order, something quick, go and change and come out, organize the delivery of an order. Even there, you can imagine how simple it might be to even to say location-wise, pressing a button and say, I'm here, come and deliver here. Confirming my identity, that's a more complex one to explain to you as well, probably, but it's authorization of payments as in one-time passwords, for instance, or confirmation, did you automatic ordering, this week we're going to send you this one. Would you like to confirm it? Press yes, and then you will be able to pay for it directly. So some of these are things already existing somewhere else, but a bit futuristic for some people. It might not help to the understanding. But once again, surprises, at least for me. Some of the simple one, monitoring spending, the balance checking the mobile operator have done through P2A from the very early days of SMS, 16%. That doesn't seem to be particularly appreciated nowadays. And it might be different once it's less clunky and more enticing and inviting. But I was talking about a comparison, and I think here it is. In the previous slide, when we asked the terms is machine. Well done. I did write it there. They say no to a question that refer to talking to a machine. And 24% said, I don't want to talk to a machine. I want to talk to a human, please. And 21% was not sure about it. Now, in this case, we didn't put the not so sure, but we asked them pick one or none or multiple. And well, only 16% said none of these. And that seems to be the difference to asking about the technology, and people did not ever understand or did not wanted to talk to a technology per se. And the reality of imagining how an automated service might make things easier for them on these use cases. So talking about use cases seems to be the summary of these two slides is use cases are much more powerful than the generic use of a chatbot or talking to somebody automatic. In many realities already, chatbots always have got an element of human interaction at one point as well. So why talking about those elements if in reality there's always an escalation point? A quick check if I can see if you've got questions from anybody. One question is, did you ask about other? No, I did not ask. Well, we did not ask if there is fill in something else for other. And the reason why, because this is an application of a mobile phone, and so we probably don't get a lot of replies back. I think we have a question, and I will read out. Facebook has turned into social commerce, Facebook Shop, Instagram Checkout. In spite of WhatsApp and message and audience, they moved away from conversational. Is conversational commerce not only a concept? Fair enough. This is from Christoph. I think it goes back to probably the context or the conversational and the message on social messaging. So maybe the two will merge into something. Is it early to say that one is one versus the other? I mean, WhatsApp is becoming, if you want, the large P2A platform. And Facebook has got an opportunity to play across different players, different channels, maybe even turning one versus the other. But I think right now I will still be waiting, and that would be a nice question, Christopher, next year as well. In our next round is, how would people prefer? Is it social elements, or as we've seen, probably a next stage of messaging, or is it the P2A, or will they merge somehow and effectively will be our social or one-to-one, they'll be part of one omni-channel messaging. Historically, math in general, I say that only take one element and then understand it, but put it in the wider picture. And it could be that if you are a brand, you might eventually be using multiple things for different things. Still have a role for old voice, A2P, P2A, and even there on different channels. So maybe your question is too difficult for me to answer right now, but concept-wise, conversational commerce is only a concept. The applications, you're right, would be possibly each brand, each services across multiple solutions. So thanks for the questions. I need to go back maybe to show some of the stats which have been in front of you, so nothing has been wasted as well there. And back to your questions, how do we see the different acceptance in the different countries? And there, no major surprise to see that China is leading, and the Chinese users do prefer P2A for routine services by far. So that's a 47%, the blue line. Interestingly, they are the ones that are more advanced. They really like their routine services. They're not so hot, so to speak, on the all queries, including complex one. So that's a 22%. So where Brazil, South Africa, Spain, the US, the UK, for instance, say, well, I'll take P2A for everything, and there are more people there than in China, saying I will use for include everything, including complex questions. I would take that the Chinese users, probably with a bit of experience, have learned how to some of the existing limit, I might say, of the P2A services. So, but not everything works necessarily so perfectly right now. Who knows in future? And then some other countries that are probably be more optimistic, so they might have not experienced it as much. But the fact that China is the leading in acceptance is obviously very clear. While it's also very clear, which Japan is very much more skeptical or undecided. That 38% in pink that comes up is really something that stands out. As a matter of fact, I see another question: is why is Japan so different? Has it anything to do with A2P? I think that's a correct reading. By the way, the Japanese market is one special kind. In previous reports, we just did some more in-depth view of Japan. A2P is a much smaller, so it's not very common to receive messages from businesses. So I think that could be a part of the question, so of the possible answer, but we will wait and see what happens there. Nevertheless, we've seen that there's a nice 28%, 19% that have said yes, but the 38% stands out as very big. So more convincing or more education to be done in Japan in general, I think, about business messaging, probably not just P2A. And if you have questions, no, you haven't got questions, I'll jump to the next slides as well. More information in here, country by country. That is something that will, it's a pretty tough read. I'll give a few minutes for you to digest it, and then we'll jump out to some very simple conclusions if you want. We have one question from Ira. Is the acceptance of P2A SMS in China a result of a wide use of WeChat or for business messaging there? Yes, I can't confirm it there, but that is the Ira, that is the same reading we have, that we expect that WeChat being so dominant, and I will say QQ partly as well, but WeChat is in there doing so much and having so much integration into services. Since the beginning, WeChat has been providing a clear path for business to build services on top of the messaging part as well. So I think that's probably what has really driven the changes and the adoption in China. But interesting to see your point as well. If you confirm, if you would like to say, but if you have other ideas of other hunch on what's happening out there. Meanwhile, something that I like is to see how South Africa and Brazil are becoming the cheerleaders of P2A. And so these two growing economy, which have got a large A2P, P2A business messaging usage in general and SMS. South Africa is happy to do a lot of things, everything pretty much, and leading the acceptance. And Brazil coming as a good second. USA is third. Here you see that China is a bit more discerning in terms of what they want to do and what they don't want to do as much, but we will go back. And once again, Japan, Germany have a bit, the two countries that might take a bit more convincing, so to speak. I see a comment, and I'm jumping to the chat comments. I believe, this is from Alfredo, I believe that this acceptance of chatbot slide basically shows that the human customer support not good in Brazil, India, and China. Human customer support, yes, probably not good in Brazil, India, and China, understood. I think that could be a good read as well. in fact, thanks to Alfredo, that's something we can cross-check with some numbers we have. I can't do it right now, but I will probably investigate a bit more. But we are asking what people like about the concept of call services and not, and that's next as well. And that the way for us to check. If I'm not mistaken, I think you're probably onto something there. It's the quality of your call service, how much you'll be waiting for your calling a brand right now probably would make you think that that's a good way to manage a service and to use a service. So yeah, I think it's a good assumption. Talking about something slightly different, each time I think that these slides about women versus men are a bit old-fashioned, and I don't think that there should be a massive difference. I always say that, and then I look at the numbers, and then I don't know how, but there is a difference. I mean, somehow the female answers and the male answer, it seems to be that marginally, but here the acceptance of chatbots is a bit more male predominant. And here you could talk about stereotypes, which I don't know, but male being incapable of talking to people is one being referred to in a few books, but and females being more socials in general. Anyway, apart from the simple, and I don't want to comment on those because they're so bad stereotyping, the male at least. But the 27% of females that says they don't want to speak to an application, but would rather have a human. That's versus the 22% for the male. Interestingly, the yes is still the 31%, and that's not much of a change there. So probably not, I wouldn't say too scientific, but I should check if we got questions. I'm sorry about my double check-in. Why Japan? We've done that. Another question about China superior to USA, and I think that's a comment goes back to what we were talking about as well. I think China might be, apart from the economic prowess of China recently and what they've been doing in mobile in general, but WeChat is probably the reason why things look so much more advanced in China than anywhere else. So I would say that China is leading, and we probably have a good reason why, looking at the services being developed there. Well, okay. And well, another question that we had before, the question I believe from Alfredo will say, well, if you look at these countries, it's not just that people are more optimistic, as I was hinting at, maybe there is a reason of what the existing services are offering, and referring to the call centers. Here it looks in, we ask a series of advantages and disadvantages of what people would prefer between a call center, calling business, or a message center of a new type, but the messaging applications, a P2A would be. Messaging is seen here as the best way by quite a few people to avoid the waiting. Now, messaging itself is not an instantaneous thing. It takes a while. There's messages reception, but we know all that waiting on a call centers is probably one of those cliche associations of genres. So people respect that. 36% complain that the long waiting would apply to calling center, to making a phone call. 31% would expect that having no answers and long services would apply to a message. 1 in 3 would say that it's equal to both of them. So this is where the one clear advantage. When we ask 6 different things to the word out there, and it turned out that this is where the messaging has got an advantage over the call itself. If you look at others, like personal, how personal it is, 41% would say making a phone call is more personal. Messaging, only 28% would say so. We've asked that, and I think one way of looking at it is trying to understand it via the different demographic, the age. So different colors there here means different brackets of age, 16 to 24 years old, in blue, and then 25 to 34, 35 to 44, and 45 plus. Everybody prefers voice except for the waiting. Everything else is negative, pretty much. Obviously, you would expect the young users don't see much of a difference. But efficiency, that's the one that is close for your users there, saying, well, maybe messaging could be efficient, but in terms of getting the fastest resolution, talking to somebody might eventually do it. In terms of security and privacy, talking to somebody is seen as more secure and private. I think that is, again, representing more of a consideration of the different scandals, of the different ideas that happened recently. In theory, nothing should be different, or possibly should be even more private and more secure to interact directly to a database. And still, it doesn't seem to be. So I think there is some work to be done in general, but there is a clear reason, clear winning reason, and say some people would accept you don't have to wait as much as you wait in a call center. Okay. As a matter of fact, we'll be jumping on that as well. Preference to contact companies. Would you prefer messaging versus calling? So we've asked the same question again, this time in a different way, and say, how would you prefer to contact a company? And some people say, I would message them. That's a blue, the 21%. Not surprisingly, the established way, 31% is what people would do by calling. There's a 28% was equally, so it's equally distributed, and the 20% that doesn't know. Here we have potentially a few of the questions, so a few risks, and people would refer messaging and calling not just to in automated services. It could be generally, they could intend it as talking to a person as well. But nevertheless, I think this is a fair confirmation that the challenge is to move some of the traffic from voice to messaging. And that's what the messaging solutions are starting to do right now. So that's at the beginning, so no surprise in that. It is still lower. But if the percentages are, the 21% here is very encouraging in my case. I didn't expect it to be so high. And there's a good 20% that still doesn't know the two. So everything is really up for discussions. And the market doesn't seem to preclude the opportunity of messaging full stop. So I think it's still reading, I think it's a fair reading of the market outside, saying it is a call dominated market, but messaging has got a fair chance and P2A has got a fair chance. As always, I still want to see more of your questions, but there is meanwhile, I'll go to the next slide. There was a pretty specific usage questions, and it's still early. So in the paper, you will find a comment from Ian Gerner showing how this might not be true at all, because in the end, the applications might change itself and generate new answers for the users. But how would people want to find an application, a P2A chat? How are they going to start this chat with them? What are they going to do? Majority of them, as a large majority, 29% are saying, I expect to go on the website, click a button, and say, well, you're going to start your chat now. And that is quite common up to the level I tried yesterday, and there was exactly the same experience with the telcos in Italy. Voila, maybe this is what people are used to. As we know, many others, AT&T and Vodafone, have launched their new directories and list where people can go and check their applications, and that the list is a third from the top. So only 15% right now would associate that. So there's potential to grow. A very good challenge to the website dominance is actually phone numbers, which has been how we've been using it. If you've been using a call center phone number or a A2P SMS, people would like to reply to the same message and start a chat, which the 20% and 20% you see out there. So the actual search challenge is challenged by phone numbers quite nicely. Email, photos, and people calling directly or taking a picture of the QR, they're all available there. But who knows what it will be in the end. So we'll see. As I was saying, this might change itself as the discovery of services slowly grows and matures. It would be nice to see any of your comments. And meanwhile, I'll just point out some of the obvious choices. If you are an Android user, you're much more likely to say, I would like to use it via search and then to accompany via mobile. So surprise. Maybe not too surprising. In terms of usage, you will find all of those into the full reports if you're looking for more details and what people are saying. Well, looking at my watch, that should be just the right time to make some conclusions, as we didn't want to keep you here for 4 hours. 40 minutes into the hour, a quick question to you, if you have any comments, because I'd like to share your comments, your view, or any questions. Let me see, meanwhile, if I can find some out there. Okay, which was, you probably, I might have responded to that before, which is, what else did you ask in terms of advantages, disadvantages? So there were 6 of them, where waiting is obviously the winner in terms of being an advantages for P2A. But across the 6 different elements, we've seen that everywhere else, the privacy, the security, the efficiency, faster to use, and the personal usage, people still associate all of those with calling rather than something else. We have a question from Ira. In the previous slide, one of the possible responses was, I think, I will go to the previous slides. By going to company website, would you this translate to find the right chat? Okay, so reading again, previous slide said we would find the chatbots by going to a company website. SMS MO rates differ for end user according to their countries. Don't you think it could influence their acceptance? Okay, so I think that you probably pointed out, if I understand, Ira. Oh, sorry, I'm reading to Christoph and Ira 2 different messages, and so apologies. I was making a big mission between the 2 of them. So it is true that the pricing in terms of Ira, you're saying that the pricing. No, sorry. Going to a company website, would this translate to finding their chatbots? I think by going to the website via mobile device, so the user experience there is you go to a company website, you go to Nike.com, and there Nike would say, do you have questions about, would you like to know more about your latest products? Then you can engage and then click on something. And in the case of WhatsApp, that takes you to a WhatsApp page and then starts WhatsApp. Or in the case of other, might send a message directly to you. But with the chatbot discovery, would they find the Nike chatbots that Ira says? In the chat discovery, or the third one, you say by searching the company's available content via messaging apps. So the third one, there is a point, if you have a directory, would you find the right Nike chatbots? That's to be seen, and that's a fair comment. Would the directory be a good and all-encompassing directory? In case sometimes the users do think that they would go directly to a Nike website, so Nike.com, and then looking for it, and possibly finding a chatbot in there, into contacts or something. So I think a lot of this needs to be worked out, as you can imagine. Part of it doesn't exist. In some countries, it does. In some countries, we're just seeing operators trying to push it at their services and their new services with some success, including a directory, etc. Christoph, I'm sorry I read your message and Ira together. Now I'm reading again, and let's see. SMS MO rates differ for end users according to the countries. Don't you think it could influence their acceptance? Interesting questions. The P2A services are delivered in 2 ways. One could be a similar SMS message to message. In that case, the SMS mobile originated, and the cost would probably limit some of the acceptance. At the same time, because of the data revolution, a lot of operators are now offering unlimited SMS. The second part to be said is SMS is still probably a bit clunky, not very advanced, and some of those providers are expecting RCS to come over. RCS is sold to be, in this case, to have sessions. So the users would pay data, but there is the majority of the cost might be paid by the business, which would be make sure that they would pay for all of their messages in a given sessions, being defined as 5 minutes, half an hour, 24 hours, etc., in the conversation as one single unit. And then the other option is obviously OTT, so WhatsApp, WeChat, etc. Similarly, they don't charge the users pays for data. So it is true, if you're talking about SMS, the MO might have an impact, but a lot of the discussions we are seeing in the market is probably not about message. Already the expectation is going to be a data sessions, which is usually quite cheaper, much cheaper than an SMS MO in general. I hope I've answered Christoph. I hope I've answered to Ira. Maybe I might have missed out something. Let me see if there are any other questions. I think no, unless in the chat. Anything else? Well, I think that could be all. In that case, well, thanks a lot for the questions, and thanks for keeping it live. I hope I've done my best to answer, but if you have anything else, do send us a message and do let us know. We love the discussions that we're having, and to make sure that we listen to your voice. For all of the members, the full report and the data sets is available in case you want it. But just a quick advertising. The other MEF reports, and which I should mention, which include Guide to RCS, Conversational Commerce, which is particularly relevant to what we've done today. If you want to read more about our surveys, the smartphone surveys, the A2P messaging surveys, is there, as well as the annual Global Trust. And I think with that, we've probably covered the majority of today's. If no more questions and no more discussions, I'd be happy to say that we're going to have a lot more of chances to discuss these in our next event as well on RC, on the Rich Communication. So stay tuned, check on our events page, A2P, P2A, and everything else will be definitely right and center of our discussions. But for the time being, thanks for staying with us, and do go on the website and download the full report if you haven't done so. Thank you very much.